Hello and welcome back to my channel. For this card, I am doing a monochromatic purple card. To start with, I have Distress Oxides in Shaded Lilac and Milled Lavender. I'm starting with the Milled Lavender, and I'm just inking over my whole panel. And then I'm going to add some of the slightly darker purple just in random spots. Now I'm doing this because I do plan on heat embossing over the top with clear embossing powder. So I've got my Frosties stamp set, my Versamark ink, and I did speed up the drying process of this panel by using my heat gun, and I did check it beforehand. I'm just using my anti-static powder tool, and I am randomly stamping snowflakes all over my panel. I did keep my first batch of snowflakes in sort of a cluster. That just helped speed up the whole process and to ensure that I didn't stamp too many of a certain kind in one area. In the end, I don't think you would have really noticed it. But here I'm heat setting it, and then I am going to go back over it with the same purples. I thought about using the lightest one, but then ended up going in with the Shaded Lilac. And here I'm bringing out Wilted Violet just to add some more depth to the bottom of the panel. Now, mistakes were made. I used a mostly dry baby wipe, and I tried to wipe off the excess ink that was sitting on top of the embossing. But I kind of got a little too much moisture on my panel, and it started to pull the ink away a little bit where I didn't want it to. I decided I would just go with it. I'm going to see how it looks after I finish. So I have splattered it with some water and hoped for the best. I have this sparkle cardstock, and I am inking it up. I wanted it to still look like snow, but be purple. So I am using the Milled Lavender Distress Oxide, and I'm just covering the whole thing. And here I'm trying to show you that it is still glittery. You can still see it, but it doesn't show up too well on camera. Next, I'm going to take my stitched hillside borders and pick one of these. And I'm going to cut out from this panel a little snowy hill. And after that, I have my mini snowflakes dies, and I'm also going to cut those out of that same cardstock. So now I have some pale purple snow and snowflakes. I'm going to add a little bit more shimmer by taking this Frost shimmer spray and spraying over them. Then I'm going to set them to the side to dry. For my main element, I am using the Build a Snowman set from Fawn. And this was really fun to use, and I was excited to get to use it, but I really wasn't sure what I was doing, so bear with me. For the hat, I couldn't use black because that wasn't part of the color challenge. So I decided to go with a dark purple combo. Now, I don't know about you, but I do not own a ton of purple markers. So this challenge was a little bit intimidating to me because I really wanted to do purple, but I knew I didn't have a lot of colors. So you'll see I don't actually use a ton of purples. But for my hat, I am going darkest on both the left and the right side. And the brim of it, I really never know how to color this part. This would probably be one of those times that would be really beneficial if I would just look up a picture. But I never do. So I make my life harder for no reason. So I kind of struggled through this little bit. That sentiment there, though, has been me crafting for a while now. I just struggled through everything. Sometimes we just have problems. Now here is a little piece that I believe that it's supposed to go behind the face to fill in the little eyes in the mouth. So I'm using my darkest purple here just to make, well, sort of a replacement for black. Now I am going to put the scarf on the boy snowman, and I had already planned this out, kind of, sort of. So still with my darker colors, I am coloring the whole thing with the lightest color first, adding a little bit of shading detail, not a ton, blending that out. I had went in with my darkest, and that was my mid-tone, and then I'm going to blend it back out with my lightest tone. To start with, this looks like a mess. It really does. But I was planning on adding some detail to this anyway, so I'm going to color the little fringy bits on the bottom with the darkest marker. And then I'm going to give this scarf some stripes. And for the top bit that goes around the neck, I am trying to keep the stripes from being too straight because it is bunched up in some areas. So it would have, less of a straight shape and it would be more bunchy. Does that make sense? I'm explaining this very poorly. Hopefully you can see what I mean. I did decide it needed a little bit more shading, so just adding it here and there. This is not with my darkest marker. I believe I used the lightest one over again. Now for the buttons, I'm only making these for the male snowman too. I'm using the darkest color for that. And this was a weird bit. I tried to use V01 and then I was going to add detail with the V12, but they're not different enough. So I kind of just colored it with the lightest color and went back over with the darker color. Ultimately, you're not going to see a lot of the little arms anyway, and the hands are going to be covered in gloves. Moving on, I am going to use V09 and V05 for the carrot noses. This was one of the aha moments that I had because there are purple carrots. I don't think I've ever eaten one, but this was kind of perfect. So I found what I thought matched the color of a purple carrot the best, which was V09 and V05, and I kept it very simple. I do believe at one point I bring in a V06 just to add a little bit of shadow to the bottom of the carrot. And this carrot is going to look the same pretty much for the male and the female snowman. Moving on, I have the gloves for the male snowman. I am keeping it the exact same colors that I've been using for the hat and for the scarf. Shading is pretty minimal here. I put it on the very bottom and then kind of between the thumb and the rest of the hand. And that was pretty much all I did for the shading anyway. For the detail for the band, I did add the stripes the same as I did with the scarf. Now, the die set does come with a separate piece that you can place up there, but I just left it one layer. Now, finally getting back to the band of the hat, I left this one because I really wasn't sure what to do with it, and then ultimately I decided I would just use the two lighter colors that I had already used for the rest of this snowman. Now, real quick, I am using I think the lightest BV color, and I'm just making some little shadows on my snowman because, again, I didn't want it to be exactly white. Now, there's still a lot of white here. And one could argue that white doesn't belong in a monochromatic challenge, but white is a tint, so I'm counting it. For this, I wanted it to look snowy and glittery, so I brought the frost spray out and I sprayed these as well. Now I know they look a little bit silly here with what looks like random purple shading, but I was just trying to show you the glitter. While those are drying, I am going to use V01, V12, and V15 for the female snowman's accessories. So I have her gloves. I'm going to color them the exact same way I did the male snowman. At this point, though, I was not sure what other details I might add. So while I'm in the middle of coloring this, I was trying to decide if I wanted to just stick to the little lines for the cuff details. I don't even know if you would call that a cuff. You know, that part, the bottom part. Yeah, it took me a minute. That's why I was kind of hesitating. I was thinking about it. And then I just decided to do the lines. I just gave them more lines than the other one. And for her head, I am going to give her the earmuffs. I kept this very basic. I just colored the band with the darkest purple. And then the little puff parts on the ears, I am going to color them in with my lightest color. And then I'm going to create dots all over the earmuffs, and I'm going to concentrate them a little bit thicker and darker around the bottom and what would be close to her head. For my last detail for my female snowman, snowwoman, whatever, I decided I was going to put a heart on her instead of buttons. I kept that very simple. I used my lightest two purples that I had used for her. And now I can assemble my scene. I'm just going to attach everything with liquid glue, starting with the snowbank. And then I need to put the backer piece on the snowman and snowwoman's faces. And this is just, easier to place down all together. I first placed my male snowman, and before it dried all the way, I put the arms in there. And next I'm going to attach the gloves. Now, I did not attach the second glove, but that's just because I knew you were not going to be able to see that. Now here's where I make an interesting change. I decide I'm going to bend the female's arm towards her body, which in doing this meant that I had colored the gloves in the wrong way because her thumb would be weird put down the other way. So I did have to flip one of the gloves and color it on the other side. Not exactly my preferred method, but I had already cut it out and colored it, so I just flipped it over and colored the other side. I guess nobody will notice, except for me. Now before I add the hat to the male snowman or the earmuffs, I am going to glue my snowflakes down. I did this so I didn't have to cut any snowflakes other than the one that was on the edge later, just to try to get it to look like it was tucked behind the snowman. And once everything is glued into place, I am going to add a little bit of a shadow underneath the snowmen to make it look like they're actually sitting in the snow. For the last bit of my card, I have milled lavender and villainous potion, and I am going to ink sort of diagonally just around the edges. The middle isn't going to show because this is going to be the back panel to my card, and I am kind of trying to blend them in the middle a little bit. The blend, again, doesn't have to be perfect. You're not going to see most of this. I just wanted a subtle difference in the purples. I guess it's not so subtle. But since one side of the card was so light and the other was dark, I figured I'd even it up a little. Now, I am going to stamp my sentiment, and I am using Wilted Violet Distress Oxide to stamp it in. I think if I had planned my card a little bit differently, I probably would have used a different sentiment or just placed it somewhere else. I wasn't sure that I liked it on the side that it was put, but it is what it is. I still think it's a cute outcome. I am gluing my front panel to my back panel, and then once that's set, my card is complete. If you have not checked out my last video with the giveaway, do that. Comment to enter into the giveaway that is sponsored by Fawn. Anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed today's video. I will be back with another video soon. Bye!